I'll be honest with you. The night of my daughter's wedding started out like something out of a dream. You spend years imagining that moment, walking your little girl down the aisle, handing her off to a man you pray will cherish her, and then seeing her beam with joy. I was nervous, proud, emotional. Every possible feeling rolled into one. But here's the thing. I wasn't nervous about her marriage. No, I was nervous about them. Her new in-laws. See, I've always been a mechanic. I own a small chain of shops around town, work with my hands, and smell like grease more often than cologne. It's honest work, good work, but not exactly flashy. And my daughter's new husband? His parents are the kind who like flashy. They're country club people. Designer suits, manicured nails, the kind who laugh a little too loud at their own stories. I knew the second I shook their hands that they'd already sized me up and shoved me into a box labeled beneath us. It started small. During the cocktail hour, the groom's mother looked at my hands, grease-stained even though I'd scrubbed till they were raw, and said, "Oh, I suppose you must be the one who fixes cars. How quaint." She dragged out that last word like it was a piece of gum she couldn't quite spit out. I smiled politely, told her yes. I've been a mechanic for 30 years. She chuckled and said, "Well, at least our son will never have to worry about roadside assistance." Her husband, not to be outdone, chimed in, "Don't get too comfortable, though. Mechanics don't exactly retire early, do they?" They laughed, the kind of laugh that doesn't include you, just circles around you. And I stood there, holding my ginger ale, forcing a smile because it was my daughter's day, and I wasn't going to let anything ruin it. But man, it stung. Every chance they got, they slipped in little digs. During dinner, when I made a toast, the groom's mother whispered something I didn't quite catch, but I heard the word blue collar and saw her smirk. Later, when the photographer asked for a family picture, the father-in-law muttered, "Hope the lighting's good enough to hide the oil stains." His wife giggled behind her champagne flute. It wasn't just them either. Their friends, the same polished group who looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog, snickered along, shooting me sidelong glances. Like I was some joke everyone was in on but me. And yet, through it all, my daughter kept sneaking me little smiles. She'd squeeze my hand, mouth "thank you," and my heart would settle again. That was what mattered, her happiness, not their judgment. Still, I'd be lying if I said it didn't chip away at me. I've spent my whole life building something from nothing. My father taught me how to turn a wrench, but he didn't leave me a business. That part, I did on my own. Started with a single garage I rented out, working 12-hour days just to make rent, then slowly expanding, shop by shop. I've got guys who've been with me 15 years, men who rely on those paychecks to feed their families. And here were these people, laughing at me like I was some kid still covered in grease, begging for quarters. I kept my head down, though, ate my steak, clapped during speeches, danced with my daughter, pretended not to notice the whispers. Then came the part of the night I'll never forget. The venue manager, a young guy, eager but clearly nervous, came up to me about halfway through the reception. He leaned down and whispered, "Sir, do you want me to make the announcement now, or wait until after the cake?" I glanced over at the in-laws, who were laughing again, this time at some joke about how their son finally lifted their new daughter out of her modest little world. My jaw tightened. After the cake, I told him, "See, here's the thing they didn't know. I wasn't just a mechanic. Sure, I fixed cars. Sure, I owned a few shops. But I also happened to own the very place they were sitting in, the wedding venue itself. Bought it 2 years back when the previous owners retired. I'd quietly renovated it, hired staff, and turned it into one of the most sought-after venues in the county. My daughter knew, of course. She'd begged me to let her get married there, and I'd given her the family discount, free. But I'd never said a word to the in-laws. No need. I wasn't in the business of flaunting what I had. But after a night of their sneering, I'll admit, I was starting to look forward to the announcement. The cake cutting went off without a hitch. My daughter and her new husband fed each other with shaky hands, laughing when a bit of frosting ended up on his nose. Cameras flashed, everyone clapped, and for a brief moment, even the in-laws looked genuinely happy. But the moment didn't last. As soon as the newlyweds had their first bite, the groom's mother turned to me and said, "Well, at least you can say you helped pay for something nice, even if you'll never host anything like this on your own salary." I swallowed hard. My fork nearly bent in my hand from how tightly I gripped it. She didn't even say it in a whisper this time. A few of their friends at the table chuckled along, sipping champagne like it was a comedy club, and I was the evening's punchline. That was when the manager gave me the subtle nod from across the room. The cue. I stood up, tapped my glass gently with my spoon, and the room quieted. I could feel the in-laws' eyes on me, expectant and skeptical, like they were bracing for another mechanic's toast they could mock later. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, trying to keep my voice steady. I just want to thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate two people I love very much, my daughter and the man she's chosen to spend her life with. Applause. A few cheers. My daughter looked radiant, eyes shining with tears she was trying not to let fall. And I also want to thank the staff here, I continued, gesturing to the waiters and bartenders, because they've been working tirelessly all night to make sure everything goes smoothly. More applause. The staff smiled, some nodding in gratitude. I let the silence linger for a beat before I said it. It means a lot to me, personally, because this venue has been something of a passion project. 2 years ago, I bought it and began renovations. Tonight is the very first time my family has celebrated here since then. For a split second, silence. Then the sound of murmurs rippling across the room. I looked straight at the in-laws. So, while I may spend my days as a mechanic, getting my hands dirty and making sure people's cars get back on the road, tonight, you're sitting in a place I own. And I couldn't be prouder to host my daughter's wedding here. The air shifted. The same people who had been smirking suddenly looked like they'd swallowed something sharp. A few of the staff clapped louder than necessary, clearly enjoying the revelation. My daughter covered her mouth with both hands, tears finally slipping down her cheeks, not from embarrassment, but from pride. And the in-laws? Their faces were priceless. The groom's mother's jaw hung open just slightly, her practiced smile frozen in place. The father-in-law blinked like he couldn't quite compute what I'd said. Their friends avoided eye contact, suddenly very interested in their glasses of wine. The silence stretched so long it became uncomfortable, until finally my daughter leapt up and hugged me, burying her face into my shoulder. The room erupted into cheers again, people raising glasses, clapping, congratulating me. Not for owning the venue, necessarily, but for the speech. But I saw it. That flicker of something ugly on the in-laws' faces. Not admiration, not respect, just wounded pride. Like I'd flipped the script they'd been writing all night. Later, as the dancing picked up, the father-in-law sidled up to me at the bar. He cleared his throat, ordered a scotch, and said, "You could have told us earlier, you know." I sipped my ginger ale, watching the dance floor. Didn't see the need. Doesn't change who I am. His lips pressed into a thin line. Well, it certainly changes how people see you. I finally looked at him, really looked. His tailored suit, his expensive watch, the faint sneer he was struggling to suppress. Maybe that's the problem, I said quietly. You care too much about how people see you. I care about what I actually build. He didn't respond, just took his scotch and drifted away. A little while later, his wife tried a different angle. She approached me with that same smile she'd worn earlier, except now it looked brittle, like glass about to crack. You must be very clever, she said. Buying a place like this. Quite the investment. I shrugged. It's honest work. Not glamorous. But it pays the bills. She gave a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Well, I suppose appearances can be deceiving. I didn't bother replying. She wasn't complimenting me. She was trying to reframe the narrative, to tuck me back into the box she'd put me in. But it didn't work. Not anymore. Because for the rest of the night, whenever I caught the staff smiling at me, or my daughter's friends congratulating me, or even the DJ giving me a thumbs up from across the room, I knew one thing for certain. The in-laws would never look at me the same way again. And honestly, that was fine. The DJ turned the volume up and the dance floor came alive. My daughter was spinning around in her gown, laughing with her friends, while her new husband tried to keep up. For the first time that night, I finally let myself relax. But of course, peace never lasts long when pride's been bruised. The father-in-law found me again near the coffee station, nursing what had to be his fourth scotch. He leaned in, voice low, words slurring just a little. So, you own the venue. Big deal. Still just cars and oil, isn't it? I stared at him for a long moment. He wanted me to rise to it, to throw a punch back so he could feel like he'd won something. Instead, I smiled. Yeah, cars, oil, and about 50 employees who feed their families because of that work. And now this place too. Not bad for a guy who's just a mechanic. He didn't answer, just muttered something under his breath and shuffled away. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of laughter, dancing, and hugs. My daughter made a point to keep pulling me into photos, wrapping her arms around me tight, telling anyone who'd listen, "This is my dad. He's my hero." That, more than anything, was worth it. By the time things wound down and the newlyweds slipped away in their decorated car, the in-laws had retreated to their corner, stiff and silent. Their friends weren't laughing anymore either. Most of them avoided me entirely. Funny how quick people stop smirking once the joke turns back on them. When the last guest had left, I walked through the empty hall with the manager. Tables half cleared, confetti scattered across the floor, music still humming faintly from the speakers. He clapped me on the shoulder. "I don't think I've ever seen a family get humbled that fast," he said, grinning. I chuckled. Not my goal, but I can't say I'm sorry about it. Driving home later, I thought about the whole night. The way they'd looked at me, like I was less than them, like my worth was tied to the grease under my nails. And then the way their faces fell when they realized the very roof over their heads that night was mine. The truth is, I never wanted to embarrass anyone. I never cared about measuring up to people like them. All I wanted was for my daughter to know she was loved, supported, and celebrated. But sometimes life hands you moments. Moments where the truth speaks louder than any defense you could give. They laughed at me for being just a mechanic. By the end of the night, they sat in silence inside the walls of a building I owned. And in that silence, I realized something important. Respect isn't something you demand with money, titles, or fancy suits. It's something you earn, day by day, with the life you build and the people who love you. I may always smell a little like motor oil, but I built something real. I built a business, I built a life, and I raised a daughter who looked at me with pride in her eyes on the most important day of her life. No amount of champagne, no number of country club memberships, and no polished laughter could top that. And as I pulled into my driveway that night, exhausted but smiling, I decided something else. Let them laugh. Let them whisper. Because at the end of the day, I'd still be me, hands calloused, heart full, and proud to be just a mechanic.